Hey, Brook, Denver. We are coming at you from downtown Denver today, and it's Valentine's Day, and so we wanted to talk about relationships, but instead of talking about the traditional route of relationships, we thought we might actually talk about friendships. Friendships are hard, and they can sometimes be awkward, and there's a lot of people around the Denver area who have just moved here, and maybe they grew up in a certain place where they had tons of friends. They're here, and now it's like, okay, COVID's happened. It's hard to actually make friends.
And even pre-COVID, where we live in Denver, still the stats were 52% of people would say they are lonely. So friends are tough to come by as well.
Absolutely. So let's kick it off with this. What's one of the funniest things or most interesting things that you've actually tried to do to make friends?
Oh man, so many stupid things. I had puka shell necklace.
You still have puka shell necklace.
How awesome would that have been? I remember getting my ID for my freshman year of college with puka shells.
Really? I didn't know him back then, so someone else.
Hey, it was cool in 03, okay?
It's probably come back at some point since then.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. Well, I didn't necessarily do this to try to make friends. I had this great plan of making friends. I had moved to Colorado in high school, which is kind of an awkward time to move somewhere. And I found out that the day before my first day of high school, I had to have this like jaw expander put in my mouth. So the first day of high school
jaw expander?
So basically it takes up the whole top of your mouth. So the first day of high school comes and everyone's asking me to stand up in front of the class and introduce myself, and I could barely speak. Needless to say, my time in high school was horrible. I didn't make many friends, so I wouldn't recommend that. I wouldn't recommend that.
That's rough. How about you, Jason?
I mean, it's puka shells, but I grew out my hair in college because
longer than it is now.
Oh yeah, Johnny Depp was cool, and like Orlando Bloom, Elizabethtown. I watched that and I was like, I want to grow my hair out super long. So my hair came down to here.
Oh my gosh!
In my sophomore year of college, and looking back, I look so stupid.
I didn't know him then.
But she always, what's that disclaimer? Like, I didn't know him then.
Yeah,
I didn't know. All my stupid things, I guess she didn't know me. We're married if you don't know that, by the way.
It's so funny how we always naturally go back to high school as like the most awkward times in our lives. So for me, I grew very late. Like I didn't grow until I was in college. And I remember being so like skinny, like painfully skinny, that I would actually wear like sweatpants underneath my jeans to try and make it look like I was bigger than I actually was. So,
are you doing that currently?
I'm not doing that currently.
You since grown?
Yes, I've grown. Yes, exactly. Okay, so on the contrast to that, talk about a time in your lives where it was hard to make friends.
Yeah, I think this has been just kind of the mantra of my life somewhat. I've moved around a lot, and so I feel like I've a lot of times had a hard time making friends, new places I've lived.
Yeah, I mean, on and off, like, it's been tough. I felt like in high school, especially my freshman and sophomore year, I had like 3 or 4 close friends, but I didn't have like a big group of friends. Wasn't like popular or any of that. And so that was really hard of like, I have these close friends, but I didn't feel part of like the clique of high school. And so that was tough. I even think now it's tough. Molly and I were talking about this the other day, is we have 3 kids and we're in our mid-30s, but most people that have kids in Denver especially aren't as young as us, so we don't necessarily fit in age bracket wise with most people that have kids our age. So that's why we hang out with people like you and everybody at the Brook that loves our kids so much. They're all their uncles and aunts out there.
Really are.
That's right. Well, we're glad to have you guys. So I think for me, it's probably the reverse side of the coin. And I'm 28, and I've noticed a lot of my close friends who I grew up with in Denver and Colorado have started getting married and having kids. And it's been great for them, and it's been awesome. But I have noticed that when you start having kids, that it's just a new season of life, and your priorities and your time changes. And so after knowing like a really tight group of people for, a long time, like 20 years, even the last like year or two, I've been in a season and a position of like having to make new friends. And it's definitely challenging. It's hard. So I really resonate with everyone who's going through that right now. Okay, so as we're thinking about like friendships, tell me like the positive side. What's been the value of friendships in your current season of life where you're at today?
I think it's been really neat for me because, like I said, I have moved around a lot, and it's been just slow making friends, especially after I graduated from college. You have kind of this built-in like friendship system that's really easy, and then after I graduated, I didn't have that built in. And so it's been hard as I moved to make friends. But surprisingly enough, when I moved to Denver, I always say we kind of started the Brook selfishly so that we could make some friends more quickly in Denver. But the funny thing is, it's actually happened. It's just been so cool to see this last year in the middle of COVID, how many friendships I've made, how many girls I've got to know, how many guys I've met, and just how Jason and I, and I feel like we all feel like we have these like close friends that were quicker than any other time that I've moved. And so I think that's just been really sweet for me to see.
Yeah, I think intentionality is so key to new friendships, and when you're intentional with people, you become friends quicker. I've read multiple places that like small talk actually does not grow your friendship with people, but intentionality does. And I think with COVID, it has made us have to be more intentional, because when we get with people, we have to be, you're not in these huge groups. Or it's like you're jumping on a Zoom call or jumping in a simple church with the Brook, like you're intentional with it. And so I think actually that's the secret to why people are experiencing closer and better friendships during this time, because they're being more intentional.
And one of the things that I think about too is even in this season of life of getting the Brook started for me is being friends with you guys. And it's probably a little more unconventional. I'm hanging out at your house and your kids are running around everywhere. And there's one night where I'm over there and Molly's leading a simple church, Jason's putting the kids to bed, and I'm doing dishes. Right? And
I think it's the Yumi and Dupree part 2.
That's exactly what it is. But on a serious note, I really do think that the value of having Jason and Molly in my life has been unbelievable. It's been extremely helpful to have you guys as mentors, but also as just friends who care about me.
Well, and it is fun because I feel like even in our friendship, we like operate as friends a lot as well, and like we value your friendship, I value, Molly values, and we can work in that way that because we're each individual people that need friends, and so you and Molly have friendship outside of like Molly and I and you, which is cool, because I think that's even how God has made us, is to be uniquely connect with people.
And I think it also shows too that a lot of times we perceive that you can't be friends with your coworkers, right? Because you have to keep business and friendship separate. But I think one of the awesome things about looking at kind of the way God designed friendships is that you absolutely can. You can have coworkers who are also your friends. And I think, honestly, that's what most of us actually desire and want.
Yeah, because you have something in common, right? Like we're all working together because we have something in common we're passionate about. And at your workplace, it's like you're all working there because you have something in common you want to see accomplished. So
I think the reason though why we protect that and don't jump into friendship with coworkers a lot of times is because we have to have difficult conversations. But if you actually kind of step back and think about it, everyone you love, you have to have a difficult conversation with. The people that you get frustrated the most with are the people you love the most.
That's right.
And so your friends, you're going to have those times, but the ability to walk through conflict and grow with one another through that actually makes you better friends. Like we've been frustrated at each other a lot, but that's helped our friendship because we're not going to give up just through one frustration. We're going to work it out. I mean, I called you last week and apologized for something stupid I said. So it just, that helps your friendship. It's intentionality.
Yeah, and I think that we talk about leadership a lot on our Instagram lives, and one of the best definitions I've ever heard of leadership is that leaders go first. And so I think that it's awesome to strive to be a group of young professionals who are the first person to make that phone call and say, hey, I'm sorry, man, I shouldn't have done that. Or call, hey, Molly, I really, wish I wouldn't have, had that attitude when I was in that meeting.
Yeah.
And this is off script, but I think a good practice is if you ever feel in your soul that you should call someone because you're like, oh, did that rub them the wrong way? Or did I say something that, and we've all been there, like you're at night thinking, well, did I say that? Did they take it? The best thing I can ever tell you is always call.
Always call.
Take that like little stir in your spirit and go, I should probably reach out to them and just hear how they're doing and apologize. And even if it didn't hurt them, it's always great to, as a friend, to just ask for forgiveness quickly.
Absolutely.
I love that.
So there's a lot of people out there who have just recently moved to Denver, and making friends in a new city is difficult. Have you guys ever moved to a new city, and when you did, how did you make friends?
Molly's moved. How many moves have you had?
I've had a lot of moves. I've moved a lot. And it definitely, one thing you said, Jason, it's made me be intentional. So I've realized that I've had to just, like, as I get to know somebody, just get their number, reach out to them quickly. and be the first one. You know, I think I had this mindset at first that like it was just going to happen naturally, but I just realized I just had to take initiative, like you said, with people to try to make friends. And so
I think we did it. I think we talked one night and we were calculating up every single move she's made, and I think you were at every 3 years of your life average.
That's
you
true.
moved
It's quite
like
big.
towns.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
This has been the best move, though, in terms of making friends by far.
Really?
And I say that just because a lot of people listening right now are close friends that I've made, and I'm so thankful.
awesome.
But yeah. And what about you? You've stayed around Denver mostly, but you kind of said you've had to.
Yeah.
Went to Golden.
Yeah, I've lived, worked, and went to college within about 20 miles of the same area. But what is interesting is I think oftentimes the people that you're closest with and the people that you grow up with, you still stay close with those people, but as seasons change in their lives, well, the seasons also change for you too. And so I've experienced that, and I think 2020 was probably a year where I actually made more new friends than I have in the past. And that was an awesome blessing. It was really neat to kind of be back in that position of having to go out and put yourself out there and make friends. And it also gave me an appreciation for how hard it is. Because I think it's vulnerable whenever you don't know a lot of people, because people don't know your heart necessarily.
Yeah.
And so everybody wants to feel understood, but it takes time to be understood. And so one of the things that I actually wanted to do today was at the Brook, we like to say that we investigate faith, right? And I think one thing that's cool about the Bible is that it oftentimes has some wisdom and some guidance on these topics. And I don't think we always think of it as a friendship wisdom. So there's a verse that I wanted to share with you guys. It's Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 through 4. And it says, do nothing out of selfish ambition. So do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but instead, in humility, value others above yourselves. Not looking to your own interests, but instead, each of you looking to the interests of the others. So let's unpack that verse just for a minute. So do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. What does selfish ambition and vain conceit look like in a friendship?
The first thing I think about with selfish ambition is, what can I get out of it, right? So if say you're meeting a new group of people and you know that, oh, this girl knows this guy and I think he's cute, you know, if I get to know this girl, it's going to help me get to know this guy, right? You know, that's not going to be a great friendship that's going to continue. And so I think it's easy sometimes, just to think, what can we get out of this friendship? What can this person do for me? Who can they connect me with? How can they up my status, right? You know, so that's obviously it's not a good start of a friendship.
Yeah. And I think also vain conceit, it sounds conceited and in vain. And I don't think most of us do this willingly. I think we actually stumble into this in friendships. Is that when we walk into a group of people and we're trying to get to know new people, I do this all the time. You kind of put your best face on, you try to like impress, and you're trying so hard to win people. You're like, oh, you like the Broncos, me too. What's the quarterback saying? You know, you're just trying to fit in this way, and I think that's a form of some vain conceit. And what I would caution people to is when we try to impress people, it's not that we're not trying to like make a good impression, but when we're trying to like get people to like us, those aren't going to be your good friends anyway. Because if you have to convince someone to be a good friend, you're not going to be good friends with them. A lot of people don't want to be judged in scenarios like that. I actually think it's great to be judged by people, because it goes, well, do they like me for who I am, for what I'm about, or do they not like me? Because that's kind of key to friendship.
If you're going to make good friends, you need to take the pressure off, right? And be honest with who you are to see if you actually connect with them, right?
One of the things that makes me think about too is the value of listening. And have you guys ever been in a conversation where it feels like the person that you're talking to is not really hearing what you're saying, but preparing what they're going to say in response to you? I think it's hard because it's something that we all do, right? We have to kind of catch ourselves with. The other thing that comes out a lot too is I call it posturing, but it's sort of that idea of, okay, I'm in a new friend group and I have to like prove my worth, right? And what it actually does is, if you've ever been around a person who does that, you perceive them as insecure. And so I think the best way that we can be confident, we can be secure in ourselves, is not think of our worth as defined by what someone else thinks, but think of our worth as defined by what God thinks about us.
Well, I think then it gives us an opportunity for us to then actually build real relationships by being a good listener. You know, when we're not just trying to think of what we're going to say next, we can just think of, how can I ask a good question to this person to get to really know them instead of having to prove myself?
Yep.
And that's when a real connection happens. Everyone says, I want deep friendships and deep relationships. Where that really happens is when we're asking questions, and that's when we can really connect, not when we're trying to put our best foot forward. Right?
Yeah, it was funny. I was on a Zoom call. I think you guys were both on it, and somebody got called out there like, Hannah, what do you think? And she goes, I don't know. I was just listening. I haven't thought of my answer. And all of us stopped and we were like, wow.
That's amazing.
It wasn't like we're annoyed at that of Hannah for doing that. We're like, wow, I want to be more like that. I want to actually listen to people.
Yeah.
Because like when I listen to you or you listen to me, vice versa, it brings a deep connection, and that's where real friendship comes, because there's understanding and true love.
Absolutely.
To hear someone else out.
So as we continue on, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, consider or value others above yourself. So when we think about that word humility, I think sometimes it's misunderstood. A great definition of humility is not necessarily thinking less of yourself, but just thinking of yourself less. Mm-hmm. Thinking of others more. How does humility come out in a friendship?
Yeah, I think of considering others. Like I said, I moved around a lot, so what would start happening is I would start comparing friends. Like, oh, I have this expectation, I have this great friend here, I expect to find this perfect great friend here. And when you consider others, you just consider that like we're all imperfect and we're not here to compare one another. And so for me, considering others is just extending grace and realizing like, hey, we all come from different backgrounds. Say we got in an argument, like Jason said, like consider, you know what, maybe that person got upset about this because of the background they came from. I also think considering others can lead to thinking about others, right? So considering where we're at in COVID, I've seen myself be a lot more self-centered during COVID than before, because I'm in my own little bubble more. It's more just about me, my family, the few people I see. But I've just been challenged the last couple months to get outside my bubble more and more and think about my friends. Okay, what are they going through? How can I text them? How can I maybe look ahead to a need they have or something they told me that they were struggling with? How can I text them and follow up? And when I find that when I do that, I just kind of snap out of any sort of like weird rut that I'm in, and I'm more joyful, I'm more happy because I'm feeling connected to somebody besides me and being self-centered, right?
Yeah.
So
It's, and I think in our culture it's so easy to only think about ourselves. As a young professional, you've graduated maybe college or you're in your career wherever you're at, and you have money for the first time and you don't have anything holding you down. Like that is like, I think that's somewhat the God of Denver, Colorado. It's probably the God of most young professionals, is flexibility and not being tied down. But considering someone else, you have to not be flexible.
Yeah.
You have to be like, I got to do what you want to do, or I have to do what's best around your schedule. So being a good friend, I think it takes saying no to yourself a lot of times and no to what your own desires are. It's not that you're just only considering other people. That's a dangerous side also if you're not taking time for yourself. But too many people, I think they don't have good friends because they only consider themselves.
Yeah. One of the things that I think about too is giving, right? And when we think of giving, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Money, right? Money is what always comes to mind. And I think what I've learned in my walk too is that giving money sometimes is actually easier for me than giving time. Right? Because time is so valuable, especially in the very busy, hurried world that we live in today.
Yeah.
And I think it's been an area of where God's really challenged me in the last year of, okay, give your time away. Give your time away. I always said this is a great piece of advice, but be the friend who wants to help your other friends move. Right? Like, have you ever gotten that text from somebody and it's like, hey, Molly, are you free on Saturday to move? And you're just like, oh, what do I do, right? And you just feel that tension, right?
Yeah.
Well, like, I think that we should strive to be a people that are like, absolutely, Jason, I'll be there.
You helped us move into our house here in Denver.
That's right.
Yeah.
You did.
You're like one of the only people. We had like two other friends.
Yeah.
Everybody else had an excuse for some reason.
The last thing that I think about too with that verse too is rather in humility, value others above yourselves, not only looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. And I think that it's important that in some of the translations it says not only looking to your own interests. And all that means is that God cares about your interests. He cares about your needs. He cares about your wants. He's just encouraging us and challenging us to not always fixate completely on ourselves, but to fixate on others.
And I want to give the flip side, because I think there are people out there that are listening to this that consider others too much, where they never receive that kind of love. So they consider everyone else, but if you ask them, hey, can I help you? Oh, I'm good. They never want to receive help. And I think that's a massive part of friendship as well, is being willing to ask for help and to receive that help so that you can build that bond. If you're the person that's always serving, always giving of yourself, always sacrificing, you need friends that come beside you that will do the same for you.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot tonight about service. We've talked about humility. We've talked about looking at others instead of looking at ourselves. We've talked about listening.
Yep.
We've talked about giving our time, right? Not only our treasure, but also our time.
Yeah.
So what does it actually look like for ourselves? Like, what does it look like in our lives and our friendships if everyone adopts that mindset? What does a transformed social life actually look like?
I mean, it sounds like cheesy a little bit, but I'm going to say it. It looks like being like Jesus. And I think if we looked into the life of Jesus, we would see the best friend. I think that's why people flocked to him. People loved Jesus. He was like the life of the party. People loved him. And I think it's because he exhibited just this posture of humility, of confidence, of love. And so I just watched Jesus, even on that verse you read, on down it talks about what Jesus did, that he humbled himself, that he laid his life down on the cross so that we might have life and life to the full, and that we might have eternal life with God. And so Jesus was a great example of what it's like to be a friend. And so I think the more and more we can study the Bible and read and learn who Jesus was, it actually makes you a better friend.
That's so good. Yeah, what you said, Jason, just what stuck out to me is just this deep sense of caring for others that Jesus had. Like, he genuinely cared about other people, and it showed. That's why people were drawn to him, And so as I think about, I'm challenged today as we talk about this, about being intentional, about creating relationships, asking good questions, really deeply caring about people, and then following up. Like, when I get a text from a friend and they remember something I told them that was hard for me, and they're asking, hey, how is this going? It literally means the world to me that someone cared about me, listened to what I said, and followed up. And that's that deep connection that we all want, to feel cared about and loved.
I thought you were going to say when a friend texts you, or you text a friend and they text you back.
Oh.
It's because a lot of times you're like, you text a friend and you're like, why has it been 2 days, bro? Like, what's going on? Are we okay?
That's true. I can be a stickler with text. If people don't text me back, I can, I'm insecure.
I'm insecure
to
too.
Some
it's
point,
like,
okay?
But I'm so guilty of not texting back also, so I apologize.
That option to pin your text.
It's great.
That's amazing.
That's great. Yeah. There was a friend that I had who actually taught me this several years ago, and it was something that always stuck with me. But whenever I was sitting at a coffee or meeting up with a friend who I hadn't seen in a while, after reflecting on the conversation and I walk back to my car and by myself, is just pull out a note and write down a few notes on that person. And because I don't have the best memory and I can't just remember everything from a conversation, so sometimes I'll take notes just so that I can remember, okay, this person is going through this thing. So when I see them next year at the same time, I can ask them about what that is. And like you said, I think it just, anytime if you've been on the receiving end of that, it means so much for someone to put that thought and that what it is it's living out that verse, right? It's looking to the interest of others above yourself. So love it. Guys, this has been awesome. We love you guys, and friendships are so important. So there were a couple things that we wanted to talk about as we close. February 20th, we have our happy hour. This is going to be the first happy hour of 2021, which we're super excited about. There's going to be music, there's going to be drinks, beer and wine, and just a lot of community. So if you want to come network with other young professionals in Denver, we would love to see you guys there. Also, we have an app.
Yes.
Download our app.
We have an app.
Brooks.city. Go to your app store. You can download it there, or if you're on Instagram, go to our bio, and the app is there. And you can keep up with all the things that are going on the Brook and enjoy some of our content as well.
If you're interested in getting more involved, go to thebrookdenver.com/get involved. Click the Get Involved button, and one of us three will connect with you guys. We look forward to talking to you next time.
Love you guys.
Bye.